The lobby of the glass tower was never meant for music. It was designed for efficiency, for footsteps that moved quickly, for voices kept low and serious, for eyes that rarely looked up from glowing screens. Sunlight poured in through walls of glass, bouncing off marble floors and polished steel, but warmth had never quite learned how to stay there. The piano near the windows was mostly decorative, a symbol of culture rather than a source of sound, its lid always closed, its bench perfectly aligned as if music itself might disrupt the order of the place. That afternoon, a little girl broke that order without meaning to. She stood in front of the piano for a long moment, small fingers curling around the edge of the bench. Her shoes were scuffed, the toes worn thin, and her dress, once pink, had faded into something softer, like a memory. She glanced around, as if expecting someone to stop her, then climbed up carefully, feet dangling above the floor. The bench creaked slightly under her weight, a sound that made a few people look over before returning to their business. Just then, the CEO crossed the lobby, his phone pressed to his ear, his mind miles away. Meetings waited upstairs. Decisions waited everywhere. He walked past the piano without seeing it, until a quiet, uncertain voice reached him. "Sir. I learned this song from my mommy." He stopped. The word sir was polite, practiced. The word mommy was not. It slipped into the air and stayed there. He turned slowly, irritation already dissolving into something he didn't have a name for. The girl was looking directly at him, her expression hopeful but not demanding, as if she only wanted permission to exist in that space for a moment. Before he could answer, she placed her hands on the keys. The first note rang out, thin and slightly hesitant, but it carried farther than anyone expected. Conversations faltered. An assistant paused mid-sentence. The girl took a breath and continued, her fingers moving carefully, deliberately, as though each note mattered. The melody was simple, almost fragile, but it held a quiet strength, the kind born from repetition and love rather than training. The CEO's chest tightened. He knew this song. Not from concerts or recordings, but from a small apartment filled with evening light and the smell of cheap takeout. From nights when exhaustion pressed heavy, and a woman he loved would sit at an old piano and play this very tune, soft enough not to wake the neighbors, strong enough to calm a restless heart. He hadn't heard it since before the hospital rooms, before ambition swallowed grief and turned it into distance. His breath caught as memory rushed in uninvited. The girl's hands were small, her timing imperfect, but the melody was unmistakable. It was being played the way it had always been meant to be played, not to impress, but to remember. He reached for the back of a nearby chair to steady himself. The final chord lingered, trembling in the vast lobby, refusing to disappear too quickly. When it faded, silence followed, thick, reverent, almost afraid to move. The girl turned on the bench and looked at him again. "My mommy says this song helps you remember who you are," she said softly. For the first time in years, the lonely CEO felt something inside him break open. The CEO lowered himself onto the piano bench beside the little girl, the polished surface cold beneath his palm. Up close, he could see the fine details he had missed before, the faint scar on her knuckle, the careful way she kept her back straight, as if she had been taught that posture mattered even when life didn't. She watched him with open curiosity, unaware of the storm her music had awakened inside him. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lena," she replied, swinging her feet. "My mommy says it means light." He nodded, swallowing. "Your mommy sounds very wise." She smiled at that, proud. "She's tired a lot, but she still smiles when she hears this song." His fingers trembled as they hovered over the keys. "Where did she learn it?" Lena tilted her head, thinking. "She said a long time ago, someone special wrote it for her. She used to say it was a promise." Her voice softened. "But promises can get lost, right?" The question pierced deeper than any accusation could have. He cleared his throat. "Sometimes," he said. "But they can also be found again." The girl studied his face, as if measuring whether he truly believed that. Then she nodded once, satisfied. "Mommy's waiting across the street," she added casually, as if pointing out the location of a coat rack rather than shifting the course of a man's life. She didn't want to come in. Big buildings make her feel small. His heart pounded as he followed her gaze through the glass walls of the lobby. Across the street, in a modest cafe wedged between towering offices, a woman sat by the window. Her shoulders were curved inward, as though she had learned to make herself take up less space in the world. Her hands wrapped around a cup long gone cold. Even from a distance, he knew her. Time folded in on itself. She had aged, yes, so had he, but grief had etched itself more visibly into her posture. She looked up at that moment, perhaps sensing his stare. Their eyes met through glass and traffic and years of silence. Surprise flickered first. Then hurt. Then something quieter, more dangerous, hope. "I'll be right back," he said to Lena, standing too quickly. "Okay," she said, unafraid. "Don't forget the song." He crossed the street without noticing the noise or the cars, his entire world narrowed to the woman waiting by the window. When he reached her table, words failed him. All the apologies he had rehearsed in his head over the years scattered like dust. She spoke first. "I wondered if you'd recognize it," she said softly. "She plays it just like you did." His voice broke. "I didn't know about her." "I know," she replied, eyes shining but steady. "And I didn't know if you still remembered who you were." Inside the lobby, Lena placed her hands back on the keys and waited, certain that music, like love, had a way of bringing people back. Evening settled gently over the city, softening the sharp edges of glass and steel. The lobby lights dimmed automatically, shifting from brilliant white to a warmer glow, as if the building itself had decided to listen. The piano remained where it was, no longer decorative, no longer silent. Lena sat on the bench again, legs swinging, humming quietly to herself while she waited. The doors slid open. She looked up first, sensing them before seeing them. Her mother stepped inside slowly, as though afraid the floor might disappear beneath her feet. The CEO walked beside her, not ahead, not behind, his hand hovering near her back without quite touching. Years ago, he would have taken charge of the space. Now, he moved like a guest in his own world. "Mommy," Lena said, hopping down from the bench. Her mother's breath caught. "Sweetheart," she whispered, pulling her into a hug that lingered, hands pressing as if to make sure she was real. "Did you play?" Lena nodded enthusiastically. "I played the song." He heard it. Her mother looked up at the man she had once loved, eyes filled with questions she didn't yet dare to ask. He answered them with a single nod. "She plays beautifully," he said. "Just like you." For a moment, the past pressed close, the missed birthdays, the unanswered letters never sent, the nights each of them had spent believing they were alone in their grief. But something new stood with them now, small and bright, holding their hands without knowing how fragile the moment was. "Will you play again?" Lena asked, already climbing back onto the bench. Her mother hesitated. "Lena. I'd like to," the CEO said quietly. "If that's okay." The girl grinned and scooted over, making room. He sat beside her, the bench creaking under the shared weight of generations. His fingers hovered above the keys, uncertain, rusty. It had been years since he had allowed himself to touch music without turning it into memory. Lena placed her hand over his wrist, steady and warm. "It goes like this," she said seriously. He smiled through the tightness in his chest. "I remember." They began together. His hands filled in what hers could not yet reach, giving the melody depth and strength. Lena followed fearlessly, trusting him completely. Across the piano, her mother watched, tears slipping freely now, not from pain but from recognition. This was the man she had loved. This was the song she had carried alone. This was their child, weaving them back together without even trying. A small crowd gathered, drawn not by fame but by feeling. No one clapped. No one spoke. They simply stood and listened as the song unfolded into something fuller than it had ever been before. When the final note faded, Lena looked up at him. "See," she said proudly. "Music brings people home." He knelt in front of her, eyes wet, unashamed. "You brought me home," he replied. Her mother joined them, resting a hand on his shoulder, cautious but present. Outside, the city rushed on, unaware that inside a building made for power and profit, a family had been quietly reunited, not by contracts or apologies, but by a song remembered, a child brave enough to play it, and a lonely man finally ready to listen.